Kia has provided additional details on the forthcoming EV9, a big SUV. Being one of Legacy Auto's newest electric offerings, we would assume this is about as good as their current technology is. It is reaching 300 miles of range, which is not too bad. It hits that threshold that many consumers require for an EV. If we compare that to Tesla, the Model X is getting 348 miles of range with the same size battery that's quite a bit more. I believe that only BMW and Mercedes are making electric SUVs of that size, and Rivian is supposed to launch their R1 sometime next year as well. Range from the Tesla, which has been providing this degree of range for a while, doesn't end there, however. The Kia, which has rear-wheel drive, can travel 300 miles, while the Model X, which has all-wheel drive, can only go much farther. This is a fair comparison because the weight of the Model X is similarly comparable. Oh, and there's a crazy disparity between the Kia's 9 seconds and the long-range Model X's 3.8 seconds to reach 60 miles per hour. Even though we talk about how much better tests are producing EVs at lower costs, let's not forget how superior the product is. And that is just referring to the EV specifications, not the rest of the technology like the infotainment system. Tesla's drivetrain technology is still vastly superior to what Legacy can hit now, even compared to what Tesla were doing years ago. Self-driving robot components for smart cars. Sure, competitors are releasing a wider range of EVs models, and Tesla hasn't officially released any new models since the Model Y over 4 years ago. In fact, the company has been incredibly sluggish in releasing new models, which can be explained by asking where the batteries come from. Tesla doesn't even have enough batteries for its current capacity for the Model Y factories, so why bother releasing any new models? Especially since, as of last year, they were hitting around 30 margins with a huge backorder of demand. Surplus of batteries, any new model would have had to compete for batteries from the Model I or Model 3, and would thus not increase Tesla's sales or revenue, as it is the Cybertruck will have to compete for the Model I batteries. However, the Cybertruck will hopefully be vastly more profitable, at least when ramped up, and by the time the Cybertruck is ramped, we expect there to be more cell supply within time to cover the additional units produced, but the Cybertruck sales in relatively small quantities compared to, say, a lower-cost Tesla, which is why there was no point launching a 25 to 30,000 Tesla if there weren't enough battery sales, especially when it would have been at the time a lower-cost vehicle with lower profits. Therefore, if I was Tesla and couldn't get enough batteries for the current models they sell, then I wouldn't rush to launch a new model and would instead take all the time I had to design, reset, develop, refine, and evolve a new model, which I'm pretty sure is what Gen 3 is perhaps. This is how Tesla managed to get the cost down so much to the alleged half of a Model 3, perhaps working on this car for something like 3 years now, and learning from everything else they've done in the past, and adapting and rethinking outside the box. I mean literally, as they have an unboxed parallel manufacturing line. That was what they came up with, and that's just the new manufacturing process. As for the car itself, well, I have high hopes for it. I expect a lot given the amount of time they have had to get this right, and assuming this could be the biggest selling car in history, this is the vehicle that Legacy Autos really need to be concerned about. And the Model Y is based on the Model 3, so we're coming back 6 years ago for the technology tests they're using today, aside from castings and kind of structural battery packs. On top of that, all these competitors who sell such low numbers of their models, they make these vehicles as compliance vehicles, or to look good for their shareholders, to show they're still current and up with the times and capable of doing everything Tesla can, and of course to at least get a fit in the EV industry and establish some market share and gain some experience and supply chains, except we find out they sell them at huge losses and can't make EVs profitably. They also can't make them in volume production. And even if they did, they wouldn't be able to sell them, at least not unless they lowered the price to an even more substantial loss. They have no economies of scale. There's a serious problem for legacy automakers. First, they don't have the initial demand for their EVs because Tesla is superior and more customers will just buy a Tesla, especially at the current price points Tesla has set. If Legacy did want enough, they couldn't use LPPP cells to save money because the car's range wouldn't be competitive. Demand, they would have to compete at similar price points, except with an inferior product, which makes it hard to compete if Legacy were to ever reach such price points. Then they would need to hit high volume production to get economy to scale, And if they hit that volume of vehicles, then they would need to find enough buyers. This is really tough for them, of course. Even if they did hit volume production, then there was still no guarantee that they would make a profit on the vehicles they sell. In fact, it would very likely be that they don't. Instead, they would just be selling more vehicles at a loss, which should mean a larger loss. This is why Legacy needed the tax credits in order to give them the additional buffer. Whilst they ramp up, it still becomes hard for them to sell perhaps even 100,000 of one electric model. Though, as there may not be the demand, whereas Tesla is selling over 1 million of one model, those tester sales get so much additional economies of scale that the costs come down substantially, which is why Tesla can sell so many of them, compared to Legacy. In addition to that, of course, Legacy have all their old systems getting in their way, like car dealers and unions, and other diseconomies at scale. I've given it a lot of thought. But Ford is targeting certain markets with its electric work vehicle, which is neither lucrative nor selling well. Given how far behind they are in terms of profitability, I'm not convinced Legacy can actually make this move. Scalability, engineering, manufacturing, and other aspects of the Kia are all reasonable range for such a large SUV, but if they wanted to scale, then it's really tough for them to get more sales because they all need nickel-based cells and can't use the Chinese LOP cells. The same for most Legacy. They are investing a fortune in their cell and battery factories for this reason and will soon be in production, which will make things more interesting. They'll be able to get the supply of sales. Finally, however, that doesn't mean they'll be able to make electric cars any faster on the production line, nor does it mean they'll be able to make them out of profit. It means they'll be able to scale their losses to billions a year. But they feel it is a necessity in order to survive the transition to EVs, although I expect perhaps they may end up offering a lot of FEVs in the meantime as they qualify for the tax credit in the US too. It will be interesting to see how they play this. However, GM plan on having a lot of different EV models in the near future. None are going to be able to compete at test the price points though, or offer anything like the capabilities or features of a Tesla. This is a good development, and the stock price will definitely reflect that. Take note that on the most recent list of well-liked brands based on Consumer Reports, Tesla comes in directly behind Genesis at number 2. Even the older movies, which I have been viewing, seem to agree that Tesla is a popular car, even though I don't normally trust Consumer Reports. When a group that openly discriminates against you acknowledges it, it matters. Despite the declining markets, there have been a lot of good advancements at Tesla, making it an exciting moment to be a supporter. And not going to be profitable, not even this decade according to them. Hey, well, at least they'll have the Tesla charging network now, so that's something, so their customers can actually go on more long-distance travel, something that a lot of drivers actually want. And this is Legacy Autos despite having no dealer network or unions. The other EVette specialists, such as Rivian and Lucid, suffer even greater losses than Legacy. So maybe a portion of Legacy's roughly 150 years of automotive manufacturing and economies to scale knowledge really helps and improves the likelihood of creating EVs.